thought it would be fun to read this story since we just talked about our favorite animals and what animals we love and why they're our favorite animals. So, one of my favorite characters in books is Curious George. He's one of my favorite characters to read about. So, I found a Curious George book about going to the zoo. So I thought I would read it for you all today. So I'm going to make myself small and put me in the corner so you guys can still see me. And then let's see, hopefully, there we go. All right, Curious George goes to the zoo. This is George. George is a good little monkey and always very curious. Today, George was feeling very excited. The man with the yellow hat was taking him to the zoo. As they drove, the man explained to George that this wasn't just any zoo that they were going to visit. It's called the Wild Animal Park, the man said. All of the animals roam around freely. That sounds like fun. If they roam around freely, then maybe he might get to see some of them and touch some of them. When they arrived, George saw a huge banner. George looked up at it, but he could not read the words. A friendly zookeeper explained, "It's an extra special day here at the Wild Animal Park," she said. "It's our baby Rhino's first birthday. We are going to have a party for her later on." A party? This was going to be a wonderful trip to the zoo. So the sign right here says, "Come celebrate our baby Rhino's first birthday." And I'm already seeing Miss Stromeyer's favorite animal here in our book. George tried to walk into the park where the animals were, but the zookeeper stopped him. "You can't walk in there," she said. "To explore this zoo, you have to ride in one of our special cars." She pointed to a huge car that had no roof on it. Oh my, what a fun this was gonna be. George and his friend climbed on board and the car drove into the park. So one of my questions was answered. I know I wondered if that meant he was going to be able to just walk around the zoo and touch all the animals, but it seems like he's going to have to ride in the car to keep him safe. Soon they were in the midst of the Wild Animal Park. "Look over there," said the zookeeper. "There's our pride of lions. We have a large family here." George pointed in the other direction. "Yes, George," said the zookeeper. "I see giraffes too. Their tall necks help them eat leaves from the treetops. And there are 2 ostriches running this way." George was happy to be seeing so many amazing animals. So I see the lions, the elephants, the ostriches, the zebras, and the giraffes. The zoo car drove past a small pond. Pink flamingos waded in the water. Their heads bobbed up and down as they walked on spindly legs. "The flamingos turn pink because they eat so many tiny pink shrimp," said the zookeeper, but George wasn't listening. He had never seen flamingos before. He was curious about how those flamingos were moving. He leaned out of the back of the zoo car as far as he could to take a look. But then, what happened? Oh no, what do you guys think is going to happen? Make a prediction before we move on. First, George lost his balance. Then he fell, kerplunk, right out of the zoo car. His friend hadn't noticed that he had fallen. George ran as quickly as a little monkey could towards the pond. The flamingos bobbed their head and lifted their feet one at a time. It looked like they were dancing. George danced with them. Suddenly, the water in the pond started to move. Then a hippo popped its head out from under the water. What a surprise! George stopped dancing to take a look. The hippo opened its mouth huge as if it were yawning. George opened his mouth wide too. It was fun to act like a hippo. Just then, George noticed that something was rustling in the reeds near the pond. George was curious. He wanted to see what was there. In an instant, he jumped over to the weeds. He poked his nose inside and saw a baby rhino. The tiny rhino was cute, but she looked a little bit sad and a little bit lonely. George wanted to make that baby rhino feel happy again. He thought and thought maybe the baby rhino would like the flamingo dance. He jumped and bobbed his head and danced his feet up and down. The baby rhino peeked her head out of the reeds so that she could watch. George danced more and the rhino walked out of the reeds. She was curious too. They were having so much fun that George didn't notice what was behind him. So go ahead and look closely at that picture and see what's behind George. The zookeeper stomped over to George and she did not look happy. The man with the yellow hat was running behind her. "You are a naughty little monkey," said the zookeeper. "You were supposed to stay in the car, and you and your friend will have to go now." George walked to the man's side. He waved goodbye to the baby rhino. The man and the zookeeper turned to see who George was waving to. "The baby rhino! Why, we've been looking for her all day," said the zookeeper. "She got separated from her mother." George was glad to see the zookeeper looking happy again. He and the man started walking towards the exit. The zookeeper ran to stop them. "Thank you for finding our baby rhino, George, and just in time for her birthday party. Will you join us for some cake?" George jumped with glee. He had forgotten about the party, and he did love cake. The man and George followed the zookeeper and the baby rhino back to the zoo headquarters. The rhino's mother was waiting there for her. The zookeeper brought out a special birthday cake that was shaped like a rhino. George had never seen a cake like that before. "You can have the first piece, George," said the zookeeper. "I also have a special treat just for you." She placed a bunch of bananas in front of him. George was very happy to have a tasty banana, but he saved room for some cake too. I would have saved room for some cake. So I'm going to read you all this information about animals. So it says, "Are you curious about animals? Hippopotamuses can live in the water or on land. On a hot sunny day, though, they prefer to use water or mud to cool themselves off. Flamingos often stand on just one foot for long periods of time, even though no one knows why they do it. Giraffes are the tallest of all land animals. Their long legs and necks help them eat and grab leaves from high up in the trees. Lions live in large families called prides. They are fierce predators with canine teeth more than 3 inches long. Ostriches are the largest of all of the bird species. Though they can't fly, they are very fast runners. Rhinoceroses have horns on their nose that look powerful. The horns are made of material that are similar to like our fingernails. They can grow back if they are cut. There we go. Oh, there you are. All right, friends. I hope you enjoyed reading about Curious George's day at the zoo. And I hope you guys had an awesome day with me learning about each other and getting all of our jitters out of the way and being excited for school. So I'm excited to see all of you guys tomorrow. And I hope you guys have an awesome rest of your day. And yeah, I can't wait to see you tomorrow. Bye, friends.